The West African nation of Benin, home to nearly 15 million people, woke on Sunday morning to a declaration of a coup. A group of soldiers appeared on national television saying they had seized power. The self-styled Military Committee for Refoundation, led by Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tegri, claimed to be stepping in to fix what they described as a failed state.
Toutes les institutions sont dissoutes.
All institutions are dissolved. Political party activity suspended until further notice. Benin's land, sea and air borders are closed until further notice. Taking power at this moment reflects the CMR's firm determination to end the exclusion of all social groups in our country without any distinction during the transition and to restore national cohesion.
The soldiers accused President Patrice Talon's government of failing to address worsening security threats from armed groups in the north and neglecting fallen soldiers and their families. Gunfire was also reported near Talon's residence in Benin's largest city, Cotonou. But within hours, the Interior Ministry announced the coup had been thwarted and the situation brought under control.
Face à cette situation,
in response to this situation, Benin's armed forces and their leadership, loyal to their oath, remained committed to republican values. Their response ensured control of the situation and foiled the attempt. The government also urges the population to continue their activities as usual. Thank you.
President Talon's government has been in power for nearly a decade and delivered economic reforms and expanded infrastructure. But critics say political space has tightened. Benefits haven't reached all regions, and security threats are growing.
When opposition party discover that the space is getting strong by the day, and they realize that they can't access or capture power through the ballots, then there's a possibility that they reach out to their collaborators within the military to see how they can capture the power through the barrel of gun.
After independence from France in 1960, Benin endured decades of turbulence. But since the 1990s, it has been viewed as one of West Africa's more stable multi-party democracies.
Béninoises et Béninois.
This is the first serious coup attempt in decades, coming just months before an April 2026 presidential election and amid rising instability in neighboring countries. It underscores the fragility of democratic gains in the region. Zain Basravi, Al Jazeera.
The coup attempt in Benin is part of a larger pattern that we've been seeing in the region. Since 2020, there has been a host of military coups across the African continent. In 2020, soldiers took control in Mali. This was followed by similar coups in Burkina Faso in 2021 and Niger in 2022. The three military leaders are now working together. They have formed their own bloc after breaking away from regional group ECOWAS. It's something we'll talk about again in a second. In 2021, soldiers also took power in Chad and Guinea. Chad's military leader later won a presidential election that the opposition say was rigged. Guinea's coup leader is set to run in an election later this month. 2021 also saw the Sudanese military overthrow longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir. The army shared power with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. But 2 years later, a civil war broke out as the two factions fought for control of the country. In 2023, Gabon's president, Ali Bongo, was deposed after 14 years in power. His cousin is now in charge and was announced the winner of an election earlier this year. This past year has already seen two coups. In October, Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina faced protests over chronic water shortages and power outages. When he refused to resign, the army took over. And just last month in Guinea-Bissau, the military stepped in just days after a disputed presidential election. The incumbent president fled to Senegal, while the opposition challenger was granted asylum in Nigeria. Both the African Union and regional blocs, such as ECOWAS, have been struggling to deal with these coups over the past several years. Today, they have called for Benin's constitution to be respected. Al Jazeera's Ahmed Idris reports from neighboring Nigeria.
I think on the part of the coup plotters, things are slowing down, and the government has the narrative now. They're running with it, saying that they have cut off the soldiers' broadcast on state television, and signals have been cut off. The government is also insisting that the attempt to hit the presidential palace was effectively contained by soldiers loyal to the president. And so they seem to be taking the narrative now to the public, saying that the president is safe. The president also confirmed that President Talon is safe. President Talon, by the way, is set to leave office in April after a two-term, and soldiers probably were thinking of taking this position now after what they call a misdirection, misrule, and of course the privatization of private property, public property into private hands in Benin Republic under President Talon.
Joining us in the studio is Ibrahim Yahya Ibrahim, who is the Deputy Director for the Sahel at the International Crisis Group. Ibrahim, it's great to have you in the studio with us. What an opportunity. You're here in Doha for the Doha Forum. How do you read what happened today? I mean, the early hours of the day, we thought there had been a successful coup in Benin, then it turned out it wasn't successful. But how do you read the dynamic of what brought us here?
I think that in recent days, in the recent month, we have all been holding our breath about what could happen in many countries that are either facing security situation that is bad or that are coming to an election where there is, not clarity whether the rulers will be respecting the rule of the game, the democratic game. So,
as in, will presidents step down when it's the end of their term limit? Will they respect free and fair elections? That's what you mean?
Exactly. I mean, there are different situations. There are cases in which rulers would try to get a third term, right? While the Constitution is limiting the number of terms to 2. There are cases in which the ruler accepts to step down, but they wouldn't allow opposition leaders to run. Or the candidacy of the leader of the opposition is invalidated.
Is that a factor here in Benin? Because the president, Patrice Talon, he's at the end of his second term, and he looks set to respect term limits. His mandate is limited to 2 terms, and he's going to step down. Next election is in April, so he's showing no signs of holding on to power.
And that's the good part of the story, that President Talon has accepted to step down in a context where many other leaders are trying to add new terms. So we saw it in Cote d'Ivoire, we saw it in Cameroon recently, and in many other cases. But I think the less positive part of the story is that the leader of the opposition's candidacy has been invalidated in Benin. And this creates some form of malaise within, the political spectrum in Benin. But it's not the only side of the story. I think the security situation that has not been going well.
The soldiers who appeared on TV earlier today in Benin, that is what they cited. Instability in the north by the armed groups, the same or allied armed groups that have been, destabilizing the entire Sahel region, and that's your area of specialty. The soldiers said the north of the country is unstable and unsafe, and they cited that as one reason why they were attempting to take power.
And it's the first time. I mean, the same reason was advanced to justify the coup in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger. All of those cases, the juntas mentioned that the security situation was the reason why they intervened. Every time that you have setback in those conflicts against the jihadists, you have military that get unhappy with the ruling elites and who think that the responsibility goes first, not to them, but to the ruling elite, because they haven't given them the means to fight the jihadists, or there is holdback on their side politically to conduct the counterterrorism operations. So we saw that several times, and it's not new. I do believe that in many cases when military leaders take over, they haven't shown that they could do better than the previous
in Mali,
civilian government.
In Niger, in Burkina Faso.
In Mali, in Niger, in Burkina, all we see is a continuation of the deterioration of the situation on the front line. So my sense is that military leaders, I think their job is to defend the country, but in the front line, not in the capital cities. Every time that you have a coup, it disorganizes the military institution, with people who are now focusing on protecting power, consolidating power in the capital city, rather than focusing on the front line and trying to, win over the insurgents.
You said earlier that You said we'd all been holding our breaths for where and when might be the next coup or attempted coup. Do you feel that the more coups there are more coups there might be, like one prepares the other?
I think so. I think there is a continuation of a trend that we saw. You mentioned them, all the coups that have happened over the past 5 years. I think one could even say that there is an idea of coup in the air. The fact that all these coups have succeeded in all these different countries give ideas to other officers that they could get away with it, if they try. And that's why we have seen so many attempts to take over by the military.
And when you see what happened in Benin, and then you look at the neighbors, Nigeria being one of them, do you wonder if there are vulnerabilities there, that may be not exploited, but the new forces may come into that hole?
Look, I don't think there is one rule fits all situation here. Each coup happens in a particular context. Countries differ from one another. In some countries, you have institutions that are well established, where it is very difficult to do a coup. I think the cost of any officer trying to intervene and change the government is very high in many of those places compared to others. So that's why you have some attempts in certain countries and not in others. In Nigeria, I'm not sure that the context is favorable, because Nigeria is a giant country. I think there are the institutions are not as weak as they are in other countries. So I believe that in those places it is more difficult. There are other countries like Senegal, it is more difficult. I would even say that even Benin, if it is true that, and we hope that it has failed, that is a sign that institutions, and particularly military institutions, do work in some places better than in other places, where countries or the military have not been able to reverse the coup or to prevent it from happening.
Yeah, I ask because Nigeria is also infamously fighting insecurity in the north, with armed groups very active there that have destabilized parts of the country. But look, thank you very much. Yahya Ibrahim, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us on the Al Jazeera News Hour.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Don't miss out the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.